to discover that prehistoric creatures exist in the 20th century.
Really? Actually, I'm not surprised at all. What is going on, people? LP2000, my back at you with another video. Yes, welcome back on behalf of Leslie P. Chambers to Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews on behalf of Summit Kaiju. And today we will be going back and looking at a great figure from my collection that I've gotten in the past, you know what I mean? A revisit, a re-up of sorts. And today I will be doing the 30cm Godzilla 1962 Ric Boy edition with the light up fins from the iconic, popular, probably the most famous and iconic and just most popular Godzilla film of all time, King Kong versus Godzilla. And as you can see, I have the box here, I have the figure here, so you know I do things around here, you know what I mean? And first off, before I get into the box, let me just reiterate here. Yes, this is a revisit of sorts. I have a figure review of this figure. It's deep in the archives of my channel, and I did it around the time when I first got started in YouTube, you know what I mean? And back then I didn't know much more. I didn't know much about, you know, picture clarity and you know, just I didn't know the best video making techniques, you know what I mean? And since then, it's been a few years, like I said. I think I've upped my game a little bit. I kind of stepped up my production qualities, and I figure I go back and just look at past pieces that I've gotten, past favorite pieces. Of course, I love everything in my collection, as we all do. But I want to do just a series of revisits. I started earlier last year, late last year, with the 68 Godzilla 30cm 1968 Godzilla. And between that one, this one, I'm going to do one of Mothra, the 25cm 61, Godzilla 1955, or Gigantus. You know, I just love figures that we have gotten along the way to making us the collectors that we are today. And that's why I want to revisit this great piece. You know what I mean? It's a great piece. So without further ado, we're going to do things around here. Let's get into the box before we get into the figure. Take a good look at it, because it's trash. It's going to be trash as I'm done with this review, you know what I mean? And it's basically just a plain cardboard box with Godzilla's name on it. You know, and it has like the Ric Boy version in Japanese text at the bottom of his name. That's pretty much it. I mean, no extravagant artwork that we come to know when it comes to 30cm or Sakai's for that matter. Just basically a plain cardboard box with his name. No different than the most popular probably Ric Boy Godzilla figure of all time, the 64 Ric Boy with the blue light up dorsal plates. That came with the plain boxes like this one with Godzilla 64 on the box. Or the recently released Wonderfest 95 30cm Godzilla, you know, when it had like where it's in all orange vinyl. That came with just Godzilla 1995. Or I think a couple years ago, or maybe last year, the Godzilla 1984, the Shinjuku version, the nighttime version, the Ric Boy version of that, basically Godzilla 1984. So that's basically it with the box. You know, it's called, you know, just nothing extravagant about it, you know what I mean? But I kept it because I like to keep my boxes. But now it's getting to the point where, like I mentioned before in the videos, You got to start getting rid of your boxes. You know, I mean, unless you have a warehouse big enough to house these figures as well as the boxes. You know, I mean, I'm not saying don't keep your boxes. Hey, do what you feel is best for you. But for me, I mean, I thought I'll be able to keep all my boxes forever. But it's getting to the point now with me accumulating more pieces that it comes down whether you want space for a new figure or a box. You know, and I don't plan on ever selling these anyway. So the boxes got to go. And after I'm done with the review, like I said, this box got to go. So that's it with that. So that's pretty much it with the box. So let's go with the backstory with this figure. First off, let me give a huge shout out to really two good friends of mine, brothers if you will, Jeremy Souls from Summit Kaiju and Brutezilla on YouTube, my best friend Butch Bollinger. I want to give a huge shout out to y'all because I know y'all both huge King Kong versus Godzilla fans. You even like that more than Mothra versus Godzilla. I'm not over that. I'm not over that. I'm just joking. But I want to give you a shout out to those guys because they really are cool and I love them. And they're huge fans of this film, as I am. I'm not up there with them because, like I said, they view this as probably their favorite Godzilla film. I know Jeremy does. So yeah, I want to give a huge shout out to them. Basically, the backstory about this figure, it first came out in 2010. The Ric Boy option for that figure, I think came with the little mini mascot of the Tokyo Pharmaceutical Company from the movie. I forgot what name it was. I think David Erdopko mentioned to me when we was on a live stream last week, a couple weeks ago. I forgot what his name. It was like a little boy. It had like a yellow, black, like a Charlie Brown type of shirt anyway, striped, carrying like a little briefcase. And it's the mascot from the Tokyo Pharmaceutical Company. You barely see it in the American version of King Kong vs. Godzilla, but you definitely see it in the Japanese version. That was a big option for that figure. Then it was released 3 years later with this, and it came with light-up fins. You know, it came right after, like I said, well, not like I said, but it came out around a couple months after the Ric Boy 64 came out with the blue dorsal plates, you know. And then it was reissued the very next year twice. It was reissued through Diamond, where it wasn't light up, you know, it was straight up vinyl on the dorsal plates, and it came in the Real Masters collection from X Plus, the resin, I guess, the resin portion of X Plus when they dab into resin figures. That's basically all I know about the release dates or the release of this particular figure. And I love it. I really do love it. Once again, I want to revisit these past figures and stuff like that because it's nice to, like I mentioned in other videos, it's nice to anticipate the newest things that's coming out or the newest stuff that's coming out and more newer stuff. And trust me, there are a lot of stuff that's coming. You know, I mean, recently the Death Gador 25cm just dropped. You know, the GMK Mothra and Baragon set dropped. In a few short weeks, my favorite gigantic of all time is coming, the 64. You know, a new GMK, the Gargantua Brothers in 25cm set. Frankenstein, yes, there's a lot of stuff that's coming, great stuff that's coming. But at the same time, I think it's nice to go back into your collections, look at past pieces, what you got, and just revisit on why they were so great in the first place and why you had to have it, you know. And this figure, I hope they will revisit this. I really do. Whether it's this version, the original Japanese version, the Real Masters Collection version, because this really is a great piece. And I will say it right now, it is a perfect representation of the King Goji suit. You know what I mean? It's a perfect representation. 25cm, not so much. Not so much. The gigantic, you know what? We're going to say that towards the later on in the video. You know what I mean? Because I will have a comparison between this one and the gigantic. And probably those two are probably the most beloved 62s. I mean, I know some people out there that love the 25cm, but in my opinion, I think the 30 and the gigantic are the cream of the crop. So we'll find out between the two who I think is better. You know what I mean? So, of course, like I mentioned, I've done a figure review of this figure, so I won't rehash a lot of the same things as I said in that video. So basically, I'm just going to skim over some things. Just basically let the figure speak for itself. And you know how we do things around here anyway. Let's get up close and personal with this great Godzilla figure. The 30cm Godzilla 1962 Ric Boy with the light up fins. Partially. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Yes, from King Kong versus Godzilla. Alright. Let's go. Okay, folks, here we are up close and personal with the 30cm 1962 Godzilla or King Goji Ric Boy. Yes, such an amazing figure. Basically, it's, basic Godzilla premise. So set up when it comes to X Plus figures, the charcoal gray skin on his body. It has like some brown highlights here on his chest, as you can see a little bit. Try to get a little bit closer, as you can see. And here's the thing, the claws. That's the thing. When I first got this figure, the claws were a little bit darker, but I took the liberty of actually whitening them up. I think I put like some light beige or whatever. It probably is light beige on the claws. Because I want to simulate when Godzilla first appears out of the iceberg. You know what I mean? Which is a great scene. Great scene. I'll talk about that later on. But yeah, I want to simulate that because if you remember, once Godzilla is unleashed from the iceberg, he's making his way into the ocean towards the army base. And his claws are basically like this color. Now, they would tend to fade towards, as the movie went on, But I just wanted to simulate that when he first appears out of the iceberg, which is awesome. So, and of course, the texture on the skin is awesome. The sculpt, basically, like I said, this is the perfect representation of the King Kong vs. Godzilla suit. It's bulky, it's baggy in certain respects. It's also menacing and intimidating, especially with his face, The dorsal plates, let's talk about the dorsal plates right fast. Yes, the dorsal plates are translucent vinyl because of the light feature. As a matter of fact, I will probably demonstrate the light feature. You know what? I will demonstrate the light feature in a few seconds. Bear with me as I get the battery pack. Sorry. Let's see. Hopefully it'll work because I haven't used this feature in a while, and I'll tell you why once I get it plugged up here. Hopefully it'll plug up. There you go. See, hopefully that's the thing. There you go. You see right there, I'm gonna try and dim the lights a little bit. Let me dim the lights. Yes, there you go. See, and that is my issue with this figure. You know what I mean? That's the only issue I have with this figure, that they didn't do the dorsal plates right, in my opinion, because the dorsal plates are shining white where they should be shining blue. And I think had they done that with the 64, this figure could probably rival the 64 in terms of probably being the most popular Ric Boy. Because I know the King Goji is very popular in his own right. I'm sure it will rival the 64 in some respects. But that's the only issue I have with this figure. Ironically, the 25cm 62, the one figure that I don't know what they were thinking when they made that figure, honestly. The Ric Boy version, that figure had blue dorsal plates. So they got the Ric Boy feature right on that figure. It's just the sculpt on that figure, especially in the face, wasn't perfect. This is the exact opposite, where the body and everything else is perfect on this figure, but the dorsal plates are not, which is disappointing. And I mentioned in my live stream about Ric Boys a couple weeks ago that when it comes to Ric Boys, this probably is very disappointing. Probably my most disappointing Ric Boy. It's like a catch-22. I love the figure so much, but yeah, as a Ric Boy option, I'm just disappointed. I wish that they could have done a better job with that. But other than that, besides that, it still doesn't take away from the fact that this figure is one of my most favorite figures in my collection. I love it so much. Like I said, the dorsal plates are popping. The color scheme on the body, the depth with the highlights on his knees, as well as his chest here, it really is an amazing piece. Like I said, perfect representation. The face is great. The eyes, even got the eyes right. Maybe the eyes are a little bit darker in some respects because in the film he had more of a true yellowish type of color in his eyes. But this one, they kind of like toned it down a little bit, where it's kind of like a dark orange in a way. But other than that, figure is great. And also when you look at it, it also demonstrates how this figure, or at least the suit, was very misleading. Because remember, when Godzilla's first unleashed in the iceberg, which is a spectacular opening of the film, he's unleashed from the iceberg. King Kong vs. Godzilla is very, very awesome film. They don't lack on monster action. It is paced really well. But yes, Godzilla's unleashed from the iceberg. He attached the armor base, and mostly when you see him from this perspective. There are a couple times where you do see him like heads on, but mostly when you see him, he is like this, right? And when he is, after he attacks the armor base, he disappears for a while because the story is devoted about bringing King Kong in. And then when Godzilla reappears in Hokkaido, when he attacks the train or tries to attack the train, that's when you first see him like this. And his head, he just looks so different, less menacing. Kind of looks like a gigantic frog Muppet baby. And when I first saw that, I was like, wait a minute, that can't be the same suit. I'm sure I'm not the only one out there that felt that way. I'm sure when you first saw that scene, after seeing Godzilla like this, and so awesome and menacing like this, and then when you go to this, it's like I was kind of taken aback about it. I was like, wait a minute, that can't be the same suit. But like I said, that's why it's very, very misleading. The head from the front, it looks kind of goofy, but also at the same time, I think that's what gives this figure as well as the suit is charm, but I don't think there's another Godzilla design that looks very, very misleading one way, looks great one way, but yet when you look from the front, he has a kind of different look. I think the Gigantic 54 from X Plus kind of has that same type of thing where he looks good from the side, but from the front, but from front or heads on, not so much. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You know what I mean? Great detail on this guy. Tail sculpted really well. It's a sizable figure. Like I said, he's bulky right here, and just an awesome representation of the 1962 Godzilla. And I really hope that they will revisit this at some point. And I think they will. I think once X Plus goes through all their figure ideas and basically release every monster that needs to be released, I think they'll go back and start reissuing these figures. Like I mentioned, this figure has been reissued twice. Actually, no, 3 times if you count this one. But that doesn't mean that X Plus can't go back and reissue it at some point. And I hope they do. And when they do, please get your hands on it. Because I know right now on eBay, if you do find one, he's going to be very, very expensive. Very, very, very expensive. So hopefully X Plus will, even if it's just a Rick exclusive like this one, hopefully they will reissue it and you will get your hands on this amazing figure. You know what I mean? So, I mentioned earlier about where did this figure stack up when it comes to another popular X Plus Godzilla 1962 figure. And no, I'm not talking about 25. I'm talking about the Gigantic. How does this thing stack up against the Gigantic? And I don't think that's a question that's been asked when it comes to like X Plus fan collectors, or at least on the X Plus Collectors Facebook group or other Facebook groups that I'm a part of. So let's just see where this one stacks up with the Gigantic 1962. Alright, let's find out. Okay folks, here we are up close with basically the cream of the crop when it comes to the X Plus Godzilla 1962 figures. In addition, with this awesome 30cm Ric Boy, I have the Gigantic 1962 Standard Edition. Woo! Man. You know what? I haven't paired these two together in a long time. And oh my God, it's awesome. It is so awesome. Yes. Ironically, I have more 62s in my collection than the 64. I know, blasphemy. Considering Mothra vs. Godzilla is my favorite film. But I just have a gravitation, at least I gravitate a lot with the 62. It's one of the first Godzilla films I ever saw. And seeing these two together, it's awesome. I'm just speechless. I'm trying to come up with the words to describe these two being together. Now, that's the thing. They're both very, not very different, you know what I mean? They're both are very accurate, suit accurate. You know what I mean? I don't have any major issues with either one of them. Aside, I take that back. Like I said, my issue with the 30 is the Ric Boy feature. Other than that, it's on and popping with the figures. Sculpt, paint, great representation. I give it a point off or negative point for the dorsal plates not being accurate. With the Gigantic, my only issue with it is that I don't like how it leans towards the left a little bit, which is why I have it propped up on my my volcanic base back there to give them more size. But they're both are basically perfect representations of the 62 Godzilla. You know what I mean? I love them both. Paint schemes and just sculpts on both of them are perfect. You know, especially more so with the gigantic in a way. It kind of like demonstrates, like right here in a way, the bagginess of the suit, the bagginess of the monster per se. But to answer the question, which one do I think is better in terms of just the overall better 62 figure that I would recommend for somebody to go after? If you haven't got a 62 Godzilla figure yet, which one do I would recommend to go after first? If they were both readily available. Don't make me choose. Please don't make me choose. Oh my God, because they both are awesome. You know what? I'm going to cheat. I say get both. Get both. You know, flip a coin if you have to. Go to counseling. Try to try to make a better decision that way. But honestly, I can't put one over the other one. You know, I love the gigantic. It's my favorite line of figures from X Plus. The sheer size, the detail on the gigantic is amazing. The 30 centimeter, basically perfect, you know, from all angles. So I suggest go after both. You can't go wrong with both. You know, I think nowadays, the gigantic is more readily available. You know, you have to spend a little bit of money for it. But like I said, if you're able to find a 62, and here's where I'm going with this. If you're able to find a 62, you're going to spend a few $100, probably as much as you would for the gigantic. So I would say between the two, if this 30 centimeter is going to be up there in price, if you're going to spend that much for the 30 centimeter, I say we might as well go for the gigantic. You know what I mean? But if you don't have space for the gigantic, because trust me, the gigantic is big, it's going to warrant some space for him, then I say you know, go for the 30. But either way, I can't put one over the other one. They both have solid reasons why you should go for either one. But if you can go for both, go for both. Yes, I love the 62. I love it. Yes, I do. All right, so let's get back to the other side of the room, and we'll conclude this review with my thoughts of King Kong versus Godzilla. All right, let's go. Okay, folks, I'm back, and let's talk about King Kong versus Godzilla. Arguably, like I said, probably the most popular Godzilla film of all time. You know, even more so than the original 54, which is a great film, legendary, iconic film. I think that this film is the most popular Godzilla film of all time. Even non-Godzilla fans, even the casual fans know about King Kong versus Godzilla, and I think they did a great job with the film. You know, considering that, in my opinion, like I mentioned before in other videos, I wish that there wasn't a lot of comedy involved with the monsters, but I'm sure that will be rectified in the upcoming remake that's coming out from Legendary in a couple of years. But they did a great job when it came down to the monsters, to the story, building King Kong up. You know what I mean? Like I said, Godzilla's entrance, you know, which is good, which is probably one of the most perfect ways to reintroduce Godzilla after a 7-year absence. Because, you know, after Godzilla Raids Again, the second film in the series, Toho tried their hand with other kaiju films, you know, whether it's Rodan in 56, Varan in 58, you know, and other sci-fi films like Atragon and stuff like that. Even, this is not a Toho film, but Gorgo came out in 61, Mothra, you know, all these different films that Toho and other studios came out in Godzilla's absence. And when they finally brought Godzilla back, you know, after 7 years, you know, it was with great fanfare. And I love, like I said, that opening scene where he's unleashed from the iceberg, and then he makes his rampage towards that, makes a beeline towards that army base, and then he just destroys the army base and stuff like that. Everything involved with the monster, like I said, despite the comedy stuff, I really enjoy. You know, even when Godzilla and King Kong first meet. And actually, like I said before in other videos, that's my only issue with how they handled King Kong. You know, where, you know, and we all know what happens when Godzilla and King Kong meet for the first time. Godzilla's on this high plateau, King Kong in this valley, you know, whatever. And actually, King Kong was the one that started it first, okay? Go back and watch that film, okay? King Kong comes in from the left, Godzilla comes in from the right. Godzilla's doing that happy dance that he's doing, whatever. He doesn't really do anything. They're basically sizing each other up. And who was the one that basically retaliated, that did the first blow? It was Kong. Kong was the one that picked up a rock, threw it at Godzilla, right? He was the one that started this thing. So it's really King Kong's fault. You know what I mean? I'm just joking here. Before it's like King Kong, like I said, when that happens and Godzilla retaliates with his fire, with his atomic breath, and he burns Kong, Kong basically just scratches his head and turns around and goes back. I can see the argument that maybe because Godzilla is a foe that he has never faced before. You know, he's used to facing Tyrannosaurus Rexes and Stegosaurus and ordinary dinosaurs, but nothing like Godzilla. So after that happens, he's very, very bewildered and just turns around and goes back. Once again, I don't think that's something that King Kong would do as far as a character. You know, I just really wish, like I said in other videos, that what I would have done if I was in a director chair, after Godzilla, you know, blows his fire on Kong and Kong is like sent, you know, falling back because of course he ain't trying to get burned. I just wish that Godzilla would have basically burnt the forest all around Kong. And Kong is still trying to get the Godzilla, but he can't do it because the flames and the smoke is just so much for him. And basically we show King Kong just disappear. You know, we don't know what happens to him or whatever. Then you can still continue with what happens in the final product of the film. You know, Godzilla goes on a rampage. You know, the military tries to stop him with their two plans. Then you see King Kong return to Tokyo, basically trying to tear the city apart. And it's kind of like, it doesn't come right out and say it, but you can probably sense that he's trying to search for Godzilla, maybe. And maybe they could have played that up in the film, you know. But they really didn't do that. You know, but that's something I would have done if I was in a director's chair. And then afterwards, you know, after they decide that basically the only way for them to defeat King Kong and Godzilla is for them to defeat each other, which was really a smart plan. The only thing they had to do was get them together, and basically they would do the work for them. And it really was a great fight. My good friend John Bumpus, I asked him this question a few years ago when I went my first G-Fest, that which of the Kaiju films he felt had the greatest fight scene, and he said King Kong versus Godzilla. And I can't argue with that. I can't really argue with that. This fight scene was really great. And then when Kong gets his second win for being struck by lightning, he grabs Godzilla's tail, whips him around. Then Godzilla, you know, goes at him. They just tear at each other. And then they both fall into the water and stuff like that, which is something that I want to address here. There are a lot of Godzilla fans that feel that that's the thing about this ending. It's very ambiguous. We all know what happens, okay? Godzilla and Kong are fighting at the edge of this cliff by this castle. They tear the castle apart. They both grab each other and they fall into the water. And then there's a big earthquake. I'm going by the American version, okay? There's a big earthquake, and then Kong is the only one to surface, and we see him swimming away. Godzilla vanishes. We don't know what happens to him. Okay, and there have been a lot of folks, Godzilla fans, you know, that says that, hey, there are theories behind why Godzilla never resurfaces. You know what I mean? I've heard some people say that maybe when they both fall into the water, since Kong had those electrical abilities, that he was able to shock Godzilla into submission. You know, I've seen that theory. I've seen that theory that basically when they both fall into the water and the earthquake happens, that the force of the earthquake separates the two and Godzilla goes his way and King Kong goes his way. Because we all know that Godzilla can survive underwater. And we never saw King Kong beat Godzilla down to the point where Godzilla could not continue to fight. You know, it was pretty much a draw, you know, which is why I love about what Toho did. You know, the ending protected both monsters. But in a press release of the film, Toho did say that King Kong was the winner. You know, but there are a lot of Godzilla fans that I've seen have passionate, heated discussions and debate saying, no, Godzilla won. King Kong couldn't have won. How could a King Kong fight a radioactive dinosaur that breathes fire, blah, blah, blah. And I can understand that. I respect that. But I'm just going by what Toho says. And honestly speaking, there is no shame in losing to King Kong. That's my point. That even though Godzilla technically lost, ask yourself this question. Between the two, who was the beneficiary of this film, or whoever lost his fight? Of course, King Kong won. But in my opinion, I think Godzilla was the ultimate beneficiary. Because after this film, after showing he can hang with King Kong, after that, what we got, Monster vs. Godzilla, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, all within the same year, it basically jump-started the Showa series. Without this film, I'm sure Godzilla would have been a star no matter what. But without this film played, in my opinion, a very, very integral and crucial part in what Godzilla has become today. You know, I think Godzilla owes a debt of gratitude to King Kong for a couple of reasons. For one, King Kong was partial inspiration in Godzilla's creation anyway. And because of this film, without it just starting the Showa series, we wouldn't have got the 70s films, we wouldn't have got the Heisei films, we wouldn't have got the Millennium films, Shin Godzilla, Godzilla 2014, the upcoming remake. You know, all these things I think trace back to this movie. Of course, you have the original and Godzilla Raised Again, but I think King Kong vs. Godzilla, for it being so popular, you know, was very, very key and very crucial in Godzilla's popularity. You know, so in my opinion, even though Kong was the winner, in my opinion, Godzilla was the true winner in the grand scheme of things. So that's my argument as far as, like, you know, Godzilla losing at the end of this film. As a matter of fact, let's take it one step further. My favorite film, the next film, Mothra vs. Godzilla. In the end, Godzilla still lost. You know, I know some folks can't stand that, the fact that Godzilla lost to two babies. But also at the same time, Mothra vs. Godzilla is still perceived as one of the best, greatest Godzilla films of all time. I feel that way. And once again, him losing to two babies, you know, doesn't really change anything. Doesn't really change the fact that up until that point, Godzilla was an unstoppable force, excuse me. And it doesn't really change anything. It's basically David versus Goliath, and David toppled Goliath. But I will talk about that in a few weeks when a certain figure comes out. But yes, King Kong versus Godzilla, I love it. Even though it's cheesy, it's goofy, even though it has all these kiddie elements, because that's what the film was going for. It was trying to cater more towards children. They tried to lighten it up to tone down the darkness from the previous two Godzilla films to broaden their audience, and I think it worked. Like I said, you may think it's goofy, you may think it's cheesy, but I still say this is one of the best and most popular Godzilla films ever in the franchise. And even though we're going to get the upcoming remake in a couple years, they still have some big shoes to fill. Because obviously, people are going to compare that when we finally see it to this one. And people are already comparing it right now, you know? But like I said, they have some really, really big shoes to fill. As a matter of fact, I have a theory on what they could do in the upcoming remake, because there's been a lot of speculation, like, you know, who are you going for? You going for Kong? You going for Godzilla? You know, whatever. There's a lot of speculation on who may win. I have a theory on that, but I don't want to disclose that theory right now. I'll just wait and talk about that when I get my hands on the upcoming X Plus Kong Skull Island figure, and I'll touch on that then. But until then, yes. Great figure. I'm glad I revisited this. You know, if you had this in collection, go home, check it out, and admire it. You know, just appreciate it for what it is. Once you put it up against your gigantic 62, if you have it, you know, and once you pop down in the comment section what you feel is the more superior 62, the 30 centimeter or the gigantic. Either way, you can't go wrong with either one of those figures. You know what I mean? So that pretty much concludes my review of the X Plus 30 centimeter Godzilla 1962 Ric Boy edition from the iconic, campy, fun, most popular Godzilla film probably of all time, King Kong vs. Godzilla. You have any questions? Holler me down in the comment section, or hit me up on Facebook. Via Mark Calloway would definitely go from there. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a part of this ride with me. You know what I mean? For these revisits, like I mentioned, I got Monster 1961, 25 centimeter, and the 30 larval form coming. 1955 Godzilla. You know, those are the only two revisits I plan on doing. I may do a couple more, you know, if the demand is there. But I got a lot more stuff coming, so I'm going to be swamped with reviews for the next at least a good month. I try to get a review out every 2 weeks, you know, because I'm busy working. I have a family, you know. I got all these things going on, so I can't make videos like on a weekly basis like, you know, some other YouTubers. So I'm trying to plan my reviews out. As a matter of fact, the next one I plan on doing, if nothing happens or changes, is the X Plus Gigantic Series Megazord or Diusion. So be on the lookout for that. And yes, great figure. Please get your hands on it. Like I mentioned, he may be out there, and if you do, you're going to spend some money for him. But if you have the space for it, I say if you're going to spend that much for this figure, you might as well go for the gigantic if it's available. But if space is an issue, then yeah, go for this one. Or maybe at some point X Plus will reissue this. If I know X Plus as I do, I think they will. I think that they will reissue this because there are a lot more Godzilla fans, a lot more collectors, a lot more enthusiasts coming into the hobby every day, and I'm sure they will recognize that a demand is there. A demand is always there for the King Goji. I mean, come on now. We all love the King Goji, the most popular Godzilla film of all time, King Kong vs. Godzilla. Why would there not be a demand there? You know what I mean? So hopefully they will listen to that and listen to this, excuse me, and probably get a reissue down the line at some point. You know, but if you can before then, for a decent price, that's the thing, for a decent price, do your homework, you know. Don't try to spend too much for these things. But if you can find one for a good price, please get your hands on this figure. You will not be disappointed with the X Plus 30cm Godzilla 1962 Ric Boy edition from King Kong vs. Godzilla. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see y'all again on next figure move review. Alright, y'all take it easy.